I'm May from the Royal Park's Mission Invertebrate, the project that aims to celebrate, discover and protect the invertebrates that call the Royal Parks home. I'd like to give you a tour of the Regents Park allotment today, where invertebrates play a key role in creating healthy soils in which to grow tasty fruits and vegetables. The allotments are managed with the help of our partners from Capital Growth, London's largest food growing network, as well as their wonderful volunteers. Capital Growth is a project run by Sustain, the Alliance for Better Food and Farming, and this year the allotment is funded by Mission Invertebrate, thanks to players of People's Postcode Lottery. The allotment manager Carolyn is going to give us the VIP tour today and show us behind the leafy scenes of the Regents Park allotment. So Carolyn, how did you get into urban food growing and what is it that you love about it?
So I first got into urban food farming a long time ago because I moved to London over 25 years ago. And actually the first thing I got into was composting. We used to compost a lot of food waste in big containers, and I always used to joke that, the only pet I was ever going to have was my worms. Then, I've had the same issue that a lot of people in London have. I haven't had, secure housing and a big garden of my own, but I have been able to try and grow food wherever I've lived. And I've been involved in quite a few community projects where there's been some kind of growing space or some kind of gardening space. And then for the last 2 years really devoted myself to this project that was all about growing food right in the heart of Peckham that would then be delivered to the local food bank, the Peckham Pantry Project, and be shared with all sorts of people in the community.
And who helps you grow all these delicious fruit and vegetables?
Well, we're really lucky here at the allotment. We've got a big group of volunteers who've been involved, some of them for many, many years. Our volunteers get to learn all about growing food organically. They obviously get to take some of the harvest home with them, and we're on the lookout for new volunteers right now. So if that's something people are interested in doing, I'd encourage you to go and have a look at the Royal Parks website and sign up there. Obviously the amount of stuff we can grow in these allotments is probably bigger than our volunteers can currently eat, but we're hoping to be part of the London Community Harvest Scheme again this year, which means sharing some of the harvest with groups, food banks, whoever outside of the allotments.
And what are you growing here? Can you show us around?
Oh, definitely. We've got a whole range of different fruit and vegetables. Some of these things were planted last year. We've got a few things that are called perennial, which means they keep growing, they're not annual crops, but also a lot of things that are still at seedling stage. So for example, there's a cold frame over here, and you can see inside we've got young celery, cauliflower, parsley, a few lettuces, a few mint plants, a few nasturtium flowers. Oh, wow. So nasturtiums are flowers, but they're also edible. The leaves and the flowers are edible, and even the little seed pods, some people sort of pickle them like capers. And nasturtiums are a great thing to have in your garden. They're beneficial for a lot of different insects, and we're hoping we're going to get them growing all the way up the side of the shed this year. What you can see growing here is hops, and hops get incredibly long. So we've already started hanging them from these strings, but I think they're actually going to end up getting much bigger than the shed. So looking across the garden here, we can see there's a few fruit bushes like redcurrants and so on. We've got some broad beans that were planted last September, which is why they're so massive. Much bigger than a lot of other broad beans I've seen in London recently.
And they're not affected by the cold in winter?
They were a little bit affected by the snow. That is the risk of growing broad beans that early in the year. But the ones that survived that have actually come back and are looking really strong now. And these flowers have been really busy over the last few weeks. But yeah, let's walk around and have a look. So obviously on the right hand side here we've got a whole bed of garlic. Can't have too much garlic. But what we'll be doing this year is getting away from sort of having such monocultural planting. So you can see inside here we've got a whole range of different vegetables all mixed up together. This is an example of sort of polyculture, like deliberately growing different species together. So this entire netting cage was actually only installed a couple of years ago, but the reason why is that we've got a lot of pigeons that live in Regents Park. I didn't realise before what fondness pigeons have for brassicas. Like they will turn up and they will start pecking and they'll eat their way through entire leaves in a matter of minutes. And this is a problem I've never had before, because all my other gardening experience down in South London has been in gardens where there's a lot of cats. And when there's lots of cats, birds don't sit around maybe eating as much. Whereas outside, we can grow the things the pigeons aren't interested in. Now a lot of people ask us about this plant over here. It's called Phacelia. It's something that's really commonly used as a green manure, not just by gardeners, but by farmers on a much bigger scale. That means cutting it all down and quite often just ploughing it back into the field. If you operate a no-dig system, which is really what we're doing here, we wouldn't plough it back in or dig it back in. We'd actually just chop it and drop it and leave it on the surface of the soil. And then we let the worms and all the little creatures that live there do the work of digging it back in for us.
How about the flowers? Do they provide food for pollinators?
Yes, it makes lovely little blue-white flowers that bees are really fond of.
Amazing.
So you can see here we've got some other interesting things growing. We've got more celery gone on this side, fennel here, one leek left over from last year. And one thing that we've had to do here is try and protect our soils, because as you can see, it's a south-facing garden. London's incredibly sunny, it's incredibly dry. It's already had a bit of a drought for the last month. And unfortunately, if we leave bare soil and the sun can access it, what the sun tends to do is really dry it into a sort of dust-like form. And then when the wind comes along, the wind can whip that soil away and you get kind of less soil than you had before. So to us, protecting our soils is really key. And what we really want to do is keep the soil as moist as possible, which also makes it a better habitat for all these creatures that like living in it. So on this side, we can see a few different examples of what we use as what we call mulch. And mulch means a layer of something that you put on top of the soil to protect it and to keep in the moisture. And so here, what's been used is actually sort of tree blossom that's been swept up from some of these trees in Regents Park. Whereas at the back, we've used dried grass clippings.
This area we use bark mulch, which helps the orchard to grow. We have apple trees and pear trees here, and of course the blossom, which you can see in all its glory, is perfect for pollinators. Behind me, you might think this looks a bit messy, but actually this is left intentionally wild to help invertebrates and other wildlife. And we've also got some areas of dead wood as well. These areas are really, really good for wildlife, and particularly for invertebrates. So underneath these log piles, you'll probably find lots of slugs, worms and centipedes. So if you have a garden, you can add some of these log piles. It's really, really good for improving biodiversity. Another great way of improving biodiversity in any green space is by having an area of stingy nettles. Now, stingy nettles are not popular with many people, but they are certainly popular with invertebrates and other wildlife. Lots and lots of different caterpillars, spiders and ladybirds love using nettles. And they're also great for composting. Thanks so much for watching, and thanks to Carolyn for showing us around the allotment. If you want to find out more about volunteering opportunities at the allotments in Regents Park, then head over to the volunteering page on the Royal Parks website. The allotment is open to the public every day, so why not come over and check out all of the invertebrates that you can find yourself. And to find out more about Mission Invertebrate, head over to our website or check out our social media channels for all things invertebrate.